there is a specific kind of stuff that I want to talk about today. Not the kind where nothing is happening, the kind where everything is happening. You are busy, you are responsible, you are showing up, you are managing, you are handling work, family, relationship, obligations, and expectations. You are checking all of the boxes. And underneath of all of that activity, you have no idea where you are actually going. You are moving fast without a destination, working hard without a direction, doing everything you're supposed to do, and still feeling disconnected from yourself. Maybe you've caught yourself thinking, I should be happier than this. I've accomplished things, but something still feels missing. I don't know who I am anymore. How did I get here? Or maybe you have found yourself searching things like, why do I feel lost in life? How do I find my purpose? How do I find myself again? In fact, one of the most common reasons women begin searching for their life purpose is because they first begin feeling lost in their own lives. And that feeling is exhausting because you cannot stop. Stopping feels like falling behind, but you can't keep going the same way either because every month you continue like this, you are drifting further and further away from yourself. You are overwhelmed, you are exhausted, and somewhere underneath underneath all of that, you are wondering if there is something more meaningful, something more aligned, something that actually feels like yours. If that is where you are right now, stay with me because this video brings together everything we've talked about over the last several weeks: identity, value, needs, alignment, and purpose. Today, I want to show you how all of those pieces fit together because they are not separate topics, they are one path. And if you've been wondering what to do when you feel lost, this may be the most important video for you so far. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact three-stage path from feeling lost and overwhelmed to living life with real clarity and purpose. Not a concept, not a motivational quote, an actual framework. The same framework that I use to rebuild my life. The same framework that I use with hundreds of women who are trying to figure out who they are, what they need, and what direction they want their lives to go. Because the truth is, most people are trying to find clarity and purpose by starting in the wrong place. And that's why they stay stuck. When people begin searching for their purpose, they ask, what should I do? What career should I pursue? What decisions should I make? What is my calling? What is my purpose? Those questions make sense, but they are being asked in the wrong order because you cannot figure out what to do until you know who you are. And you cannot fully know who you are until you understand what you need. Yet, most advice skips those steps entirely. Take the personality test, build the vision board, find your passion, discover your calling, follow your dreams, because those things are not bad. The problem is they skip the foundation. They focus on doing rather than being. And the direction built and the direction and a direction built on a weak foundation never lasts. You can spend years chasing a life that looks right on paper and still feel disconnected from it because it was never built from who you really are. You can accomplish goal after goal and still feel empty because the goals were never connected to your authentic self. You can build an entire life around someone else's expectation and spend years wondering why it never feels like home. The path from feeling lost in life to living purposefully is not a shortcut. It is a sequence, and that sequence matters. I want to be brief but honest about my own journey because I think it helps explain why this framework works. When I was in my own season of feeling lost and overwhelmed, I made all of the same mistakes. I asked, what should I do before? Who am I? I chased external markers of success. I looked for answers outside of myself. I built directions that looked right but felt wrong over and over. And every time something didn't work, I assumed I needed a different strategy, a different goal, a different plan, a different answer. But eventually I realized the problem was not the destination. The problem was the foundation. I was trying to build a life before I understood the person building it. The shift happened when I stopped obsessing over where I was going and started asking deeper questions. Who is Keisha when she's not performing for anyone? Who is Keisha when she's not trying to meet everyone's expectations? Who is Keisha underneath all of those roles and responsibilities? What does Keisha actually need? Not want, but need to feel fulfilled, energized, and alive. And once I started answering those questions honestly, the direction became clear. Not overnight and not perfectly, but steadily. That process required honesty. It required courage. It required grieving versions of myself that no longer fit. It required letting go of identities that were built around pleasing, performing, and proving. But on the other side of that work, I felt something better than certainty. I felt alignment. Work that feels like mine, a life that fits, and a direction that I trust. Not everything is perfect, but it is authentic because it is built on who I actually am. And that path has a name. Today, I'm going to walk you through it. The first stage is the foundation of everything. And it is this stage most women try to skip. Knowing myself, not who I have been performing, not who does everyone around me need me to be, not who I became out of survival. Who am I at my core? Who am I when nobody is watching? Who am I when nobody needs anything from me? Who am I beyond my role? Because many women can tell you who they are as a mother, who they are as a wife, who they are as an employee, a caregiver, but ask them who they are beneath those roles, and suddenly the answer becomes much harder. Stage one is about uncovering your authentic identity. It is about examining the value that you've inherited and checking and deciding which ones are actually yours. It is about identifying where you've been living in accordance with expectations instead of truth. It is about separating who you are from who you learn to be. This is where self awareness begins. This is where finding yourself again begins. Because you cannot build a purposeful life on an identity you have never examined. Every woman I worked with who stayed stuck despite doing the work was building on a foundation that was not hers. She was building a future on top of someone else's definition of success, definition of happiness, definition of who she should be. And eventually the foundation cracks because it was never built from her truth. Every woman I work with eventually discovers the same thing. Finding yourself is not about being someone new. It is about remembering who you were before the world told you who you needed to be, before the expectations, before the role, before the pressure. before all the ways you learn to perform instead of simply be. Get this stage right, and everything else becomes possible. Because stage one is not the beginning of the journey, it is the ground the entire journey is built on. Before we move to stage two, I want to ask you something. If anything I just described resonated with you, if you realize that you spent more time being who everyone else needed than discovering who you actually are, drop the word foundation in the comments. Because this is where the work begins. And if what I'm describing feels like the work that you have been needing to do, I want you to know that this is exactly what we do inside Life Purpose Makeover. Not alone, not through YouTube videos, with structure, with guidance, with support, with me walking alongside you through the process. The link to book a free discovery call is in the description. Come talk to me. Don't wait until you feel ready. Let's start the conversation. Once you begin to understand who you are, the next question becomes, what do you actually need? Not what do you want, not what I have been told that I should want, not what looks good on social media. What do I need? What do I need to thrive? What are the conditions that allow me to feel emotionally healthy, energized, connected, and fulfilled? This is a stage where many women have a surprising realization. They discover that the emptiness that they have been feeling is not because something is wrong with them. It's because important needs have gone unmet for a very long time. And when needs go unmet long enough, they often disguise themselves as confusion, as frustration, as resentment, as burnout, as feeling lost in life. Many women spend years trying to solve those symptoms without ever addressing the root cause. They think they need a new career, a new relationship, a new goal, a new planner, a new strategy, when what they really need is something much deeper. Sometimes a woman thinks she needs a new career when she actually needs rest. Sometimes she thinks she needs a different relationship when what she actually needs is emotional connection. Sometimes she believes she needs an entirely different life when what she truly needs is permission to be herself inside the life she already had. And that distinction matters because if you misidentify the problem, you will spend years chasing solutions that never solve it. Stage two is about understanding your needs clearly enough that you stop trying to fulfill emotional hunger with the wrong thing. It is about learning the difference between who you have been chasing and what you have actually been hungry for. For some women, that need is connection, freedom, creativity, peace, growth, or being seen, heard, and valued for who they truly are. The specific need is different. The importance of meeting it is not. Because when your needs consistently go unmet, life starts to feel heavy. You begin functioning instead of living. You survive instead of thrive. You perform instead of engage. And eventually, you wake up wondering why your life feels so disconnected. Not because you failed, but because you've been depleted. This stage is where you stop judging yourself and start understanding yourself. This stage is where self compassion begins. This stage is where many women finally realize that they were never broken. They were exhausted. They were disconnected from what they genuinely needed. And they were trying to push through a problem that required attention instead of more effort. Most women who complete stage one and skip stage two eventually find themselves with direction but no fuel. They know who they are, but they're still depleted, still resentful, still overwhelmed, and still running on empty because the foundation is there, the direction is there, but the energy is missing. Stage 2 is what fills you back up. It's your fuel source. And without fuel, even the best direction cannot carry you very far. Now, once you know who you are, understand what you need, something powerful begins to happen. The direction starts to emerge, not from outside pressure, not from someone else's expectations, not from comparison, not from fear, from within. And this is where purpose begins to take shape. And I want to be very clear about something. Most women expect this stage to feel like a lightning bolt. They expect purpose to arrive with some grand announcement from the universe. Like one morning, they're going to wake up and suddenly know exactly what they're supposed to do with the rest of their lives. But purpose rarely works that way. Most of the time, it arrives much more quietly. It arrives like one aligned decision, one honest conversation, one courageous choice, one step towards a life that feels more like you. Purpose is rarely discovered in a single moment. It is built through a series of choices that move you closer and closer to yourself. This is why I often tell women that clarity and purpose are not found, they are built, and they are built from the inside out. This stage is about taking everything you learned in stage 1 and 2 and allowing it to shape the direction of your life. It is about identifying what purposeful living looks like for you, not in theory, not in some idealized future, in your everyday life. Your relationships, your work, your boundaries, your decisions, your commitments, your habits, and priorities. Because purpose is not just what you do, purpose is how you live. It is how you show up. It is how you align your daily choices with who you are and what matters most. This stage also requires courage because once you start seeing the path clearly, you have to decide whether you're willing to walk it. And that can be scary. Sometimes the path asks you to stop hiding. Sometimes it asks you to speak up. Sometimes it asks you to set boundaries. Sometimes it asks you to disappoint people who benefited from the version of you that kept abandoning yourself. Sometimes it asks you to trust yourself in ways that you have never before, and that can feel uncomfortable. But it is also where the transformation happens. Women who move through all three stages often tell me something interesting. They do not say that their lives suddenly became perfect. They do not say that all of their problems disappeared. They do not say they never feel uncertain. What they say is this: I feel like myself. I know what matters to me now. I trust myself, I have direction, and I know why I'm making the choices that I'm making. I don't feel lost anymore. That is what clarity feels like. Not perfection, direction. Not certainty, alignment. Not having all of the answers, but trusting yourself enough to take the next step. And that changes everything. Before we move on, I want to say something directly because I think many women need to hear it. Finding yourself does not mean blowing up your life. It does not mean leaving your marriage. It does not mean quitting your job tomorrow. It does not mean abandoning the people that you love. And it does not mean becoming selfish. In fact, most of the time, it means the exact opposite. Most of the time, finding yourself means being more honest, more present, more authentic, more connected, and more intentional. It means being more of who you really are, bringing more of who you really are into a life you already have, not becoming someone else, becoming more fully yourself. And that is an important decision because many women stay stuck because they are afraid of what they might find if they start looking inward. They worry that self discovery will require them to destroy everything that they have built. But that is rarely the case. Most of the time, the work is not about destruction, it's about alignment. It's about creating a life that reflects who you are instead of hiding who you are. And that is a very different thing. So let's bring it all together. The path from feeling lost and overwhelmed to living with clarity and purpose moves through three stages. Stage one, knowing myself, which is the foundation, the work of understanding who you truly are beneath your roles, expectations, and identities you have accumulated throughout your life. Stage two, knowing my environment is the fuel, the work of understanding what you genuinely need to feel healthy, fulfilled, connected, and energized. And stage three, knowing my path, that direction, the work of building a life that reflects who you are and what you need, your identity, needs, purpose, foundation, full direction. And when those three things come together, something remarkable happens. Life begins to make sense again. Not because every problem disappears, not because every question gets answered, but because you are no longer building your life from the outside in. You're building it from inside out. That is the difference. And underneath all three stages is one central truth that I want you to remember. Clarity and purpose are not discovered, they are built. Built through self awareness, built through honesty, built through courage, built through aligned choices, built one decision at a time. And no matter how lost you're feeling right now, that process is available to you because purpose is not reserved for a special few. It's available to ordinary women who are willing to do the work of becoming more fully themselves. I have watched this happen too many times to believe otherwise. I want you to imagine for a moment. Imagine being in the middle of a decision, a real decision, something that matters. Maybe it is a relationship, career, boundary you need to set, or a dream you've been putting off. Now imagine that instead of your usual spiral of second guessing, instead of overthinking every possible outcome, instead of asking everyone else what they think, there is clarity. Not certainty about the outcome, clarity about the direction, who you are, what matters, what you need about the life that you are trying to build. Enough clarity to make a decision and trust it. Not because you know how everything will turn out, but because you know the decision came from your truth. What would that feel like? What would it feel like to trust yourself again? What would it feel like to stop looking outside of yourself for every answer? What would it feel like to know that even if the road ahead is uncertain, you are moving in the right direction? Take a moment and really sit with that because that quality, that grounded, settled, self trusting quality is what purposeful living actually feels like. Not a perfect life, a grounded one. Not a finish line, an aligned one. Not a life without challenges, but a life with direction. And that is what becomes possible when you build from the inside out. If you've been feeling lost lately, if you've been feeling overwhelmed, if you've been questioning yourself, if you've been wondering whether it's too late to figure things out, hear me clearly. It's not too late. You are not behind. You have not missed your chance, and you are not broken. You may simply be standing at the beginning of a process that requires a different approach than the one that you've been using. The path out here is real. The sequence works. And what you do not have to do is walk it alone. If you listen to all three stages and thought, this is exactly the work that I need to do, I want to invite you into the Life Purpose Makeover because this is the framework that we use. We go deeper into each stage. We uncover the identities that no longer fit. We identify the needs that have been neglected. We clarify the values that matter most. We build a path that feels authentic, aligned, and most importantly, sustainable. And we do it together with support, with accountability, and with guidance. If you have spent years trying to figure it out on your own, maybe the next step is not more information. Maybe the next step is support. The link to book a discovery call is in the description. Come talk to me. We will talk about where you are in the process, what has been keeping you stuck, what you are longing for, and whether or not the Life Purpose Makeover is the right next step for you. No pressure, it's just a conversation. And sometimes one honest conversation can change everything. If you're not ready for that step, it's okay. Start with the core values finder. It is completely free because your values are one of the clearest windows into who you really are. And understanding your values is powerful stage one work. You'll find the link in the description as well. Take the first step. Let yourself begin. If this video helped you understand why you have been feeling lost in life, if it helps you see the connection between identity, needs, and purpose, give it a like. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe for new videos every Tuesday. And I would love to hear from you. What stage are you in right now? Stage one, stage two, or three? Drop it in the comments. Tell me where you are because it helps me create content that supports you on your journey that you're actually walking. Next Tuesday, we're going into a transformation story territory. A real woman, a real journey, a real process, and a real result. Because sometimes the most powerful way to understand what is possible is to see what happened when someone decides to take that first step. Until then, remember this: you do not find your purpose by becoming someone else, you find it by becoming more fully yourself. The path is real, the work is worth it, and your next step is waiting for you. I'll see you guys in the next video.